Caitlin, Chloe, Lynn, Sam, welcome.
John.
Thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Lynn, I'm going to start with you because I want to ask a question or maybe a statement about a movie that has high school kids who are smart and interesting and independent. That to me is what sets this movie apart. Was that what attracted you in part to the script?
It was, definitely. I liked the way that they all seemed smart and mature and interesting and full, three-dimensional characters.
Not right now.
Such like they are actors.
But
they clearly
exactly. But they're still kids. They're still
really
allowed
mature.
to be kids, Because I've seen a few films or I've read a few scripts that they were like, there's the worldly wise, the like super smart, smarter than other than all the grown-ups around them. So sometimes those kids are a little bit, they're not real because they're not really kids. So I liked how these kids were allowed to be real and smart and genuine, but real. They're also real kids.
I mean, it says for the actors, for the junior actors, not the senior actor. When you guys were talking to Lynn,
Senior.
When you're talking to Lynn,
You guys get the early
veteran,
special tomorrow?
experienced.
You guys gonna
Getting out the walker.
When you guys were talking to Lynn about who these girls were, what were the kinds of things what were the questions that you had, and how did you work with Lynn to help find those characters?
It kind of just like happened.
We jumped into it.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't be like, how are we gonna do this? I mean, I think when you talk about it too much, when you're in rehearsals and stuff, you can kill the spontaneity of it. And I think when you're just like two kids, I mean, we're pretty much the same age, so it's not like she was 24 or I was 24 or something, and we were having to like make a fake friendship. It was just like she just turned the camera on and like watched us try and say the lines without being foolish.
Yeah, we got a little time to kind of hang out and be silly together on set and just kind of get to know each other.
We didn't do much rehearsal either,
Yeah,
which was really
no,
nice.
Time.
You guys are both firecrackers, let's face it. You guys are both.
They're super talented.
The yearbook scene is a scene that feels to me, among all the scenes in the film, a lot of people, including me, have singled it out for feeling incredibly authentic, natural. I mean, I don't know if it was ad-libbed or scripted, but it's a tiny little scene. But I'm curious, Lynn and the actors, about that scene and about what it meant to the film and what it meant to do it.
It was just like we were just like saying stupid stuff.
Yeah, some of it was, most of it was like,
just like, oh.
Yeah, well, I mean, end of it too. The end.
It was.
You okay?
What was that?
I didn't think you could. You know what I mean, though? It's like that weird stuff.
It was scripted, but then also we were just messing around in that scene.
I actually get anxiety about, like, I was talking about this a little earlier, about how I really want this to seem like a real friendship, and I don't know what, it was really strange, and it was like, well, you put two goofy girls together, and it turns out, they act like goofy girls. I mean,
none of us
it was
were
amazing,
shy,
it was so natural.
Kira's not here to defend herself, so we can go after her.
She's right here. She's wearing a cloak.
The invisibility cloak from Harry Potter?
Harry Potter.
She's right there, though.
But we can talk about the character and about her relationship to your character. It strikes me that that's a character that if you go 5 degrees off course, you're in real trouble in terms of her seeming unrelatable or so crazy that the audience is going to reject her. So I'm curious, how fine a line do you have to walk in that character and in your character's relationship with her?
You thought her character was close to being crazy?
No, I said if you veer 5 degrees off course, you have people are going to look at her in a very different way. That there's a narrow margin of error within her character.
I think just always trying to keep it grounded and real, and for me, she never felt that way. To me, she just felt very human.
Oh, you mean because she's that morality part of it, or?
Yeah, no, I think the character is great. I'm just saying if you don't get the tone right,
oh, Jesus,
the whole
sorry.
Oh my God.
Cut that out.
I'm curious about what drew you to the part and the conversations that you had with Lynn about who this guy was, and
Well, we were pretty much on the same page, I think, pretty right away. It was all. I think we wanted to create a guy who was a real guy, who was kind of a little sad, but also charming, and yeah, I mean. What do you remember about?
A little bit about his arc. I mean, that was what I was really focused on. This is a guy you had to believe that He starts out. I want him to look a little older at the beginning, a little bit more, sort of world weary, and just he's really cynical. I think he's in a really cynical place, especially about love. He hasn't connected to anybody in a long time, and he's been, he didn't really want to be a parent. He's sort of doing that because he was sort of stuck with it. He's doing his duty, and then he really is brought to life, I think, through this process, and it takes him by surprise, I think. And so there's I wanted to see you have to sort of start with the bleak, garden, that then then you can see flowers blooming or whatever, No,
that's right. I now remember we talked about the way he dressed and how he at one time he had mojo and he'd kind of lost it, and then by the end of the film we wanted him to get a little mojo back because he's falling in love, and so we did little tricks with the makeup and the wardrobe to kind of, and his hair changed a little to kind of give that illusion and support the acting, but so that he blossomed. I think we even talked about like a flower sort of blossoming a little bit.
And then his flower, not to be too much of a spoiler, there's a bail scene which is incredibly heartbreaking to watch as an audience.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful scene in which everything that he imagines is going to happen, everything just falls apart in front of him.
Yeah, it's where he's been abandoned, just like she's been abandoned. It's the second time. So it's that scene where you find out she's engaged. Yeah. It's being abandoned again. Yeah, which is terrifying and lonely. Yeah.
Yeah, make yourself vulnerable and just get beaten down.
Yeah. We do talk about duty. He is, in my mind, and compared to other movies, a very loving parent. He really adores his daughter.
He calls her on her crap, and he definitely is a. We discussed that too.
Something else that happens though is Craig starts to see Annika as more of a real person instead of just a gerbil.
Which is very someone that has no concept of time.
Exactly. Right. Because I think he's been doing his duty by her, but there's never been this like daddy love kind of, daddy's little girl.
Connection,
not a real connection. Yeah, I think there's been a little disconnect between the two. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he just sort of sees her almost like this little puppy or a little pet, and he just has to keep, make sure she's safe and give her, feed her, and make sure but doesn't really see her as a whole person. And because of this relationship, this friendship that she develops with, with Keira's character, and he develops a respect for Keira's character, and so I think that helps him to see, I guess my daughter, wow, she sees something in her. I guess there really is, she's all right, Yeah. It kind of opens his eyes to her.
And she's going through that rebellious age where parents are idiots, and...
And she's confused because she's in a divorced family and she has neither parents really there for her, and her friends are all mixed up too. So it's kind of like, she's kind of...
This one,
her friends are real mixed up.
Bad influences over here.
I say borderline, not bad. But it also...
She steals.
Well,
yeah. He mentioned it though.
Like we didn't.
Belongings away.
Yeah.
Like we all didn't shoplift? Exactly. Come on. Last question. Do you think parents and children will see this movie in a different way, or do you hope they see it in the same way?
I think different generations will take different things from it for sure.
Yes.
Because I remember walking out of the theater and I talked to my mom about it, and my brother who's 32, my brother who's 27, my brother who's 22, and I talked to them all differently about it.
Really?
Every single one from like each kind of the same generation, but they're different. They all had a different outlook on like what it meant, which is so interesting.
I think it's one of those ones that reflects back on your own experience and where you are in life. Yeah. For sure.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I think that's true.
But that's a great sign of success of the film, that people with different backgrounds, different histories, different ages can take away totally different things from the film. I guess that's a sign that you guys did good work.
Well, it's like it's like what you were saying today. It seems like a small concept, but it actually speaks on a totally. It's such a bigger level.
Universal level.
It speaks on such a universal level. Emotionally.
My very last question, because I thought I heard it in a very... Is Laggy's actually a line very quickly in passing?
Yeah.
Okay.
She's got it
and
right
what's
there.
the origin? Should I know? Is it exposing me to be totally out of it?
What's great about the line is that you barely hear it.
Barely hear it.
That's the best part of it.
It's awesome.
It's just a throwaway.
It's really nice. The word came from the writer who used it all the time with her high school buddies. They would always be just like, oh my God, can we get out of here, Laggies? You guys are you know, that was the term.
Really?
You're
It
lagging
used to-
behind.
You're lagging behind. One
You're
who
holding it
lags. Exactly. And she was really surprised that I had never heard of this term before.
Probably a NorCal
And I
term.
felt really out of it because I hadn't heard. And it turns out, no, nobody outside of her group of friends
Yeah, I never heard of it.
had never heard of it. And so she came to realize, oh, it was just our weird little thing. But and at first, you know, for a little bit, I was kind of anxious about the fact that, well, nobody's heard that term, they don't know what it is, and maybe it's a title. But we played around with other titles, and they just weren't as singular. You know, they found it too generic, and I realized.
To change the name.
Yeah, that was the plan. And then I became really appreciative of the name because I realized you don't know, even if you don't know what it means, it kind of causes you to lean in a little bit, I think.
Makes you listen.
Makes you listen. And you can kind of guess what it means, too. So.
And if you change the title, they're going to say The Seasons of Life or something like, sounds like a Hallmark
Something
Hall of
that
Fame.
sounds like, you know,
It's hard, to come up with something that sounds as good. So, there
Thank you
you
for
go.
coming in. Thanks for
Thanks,
making
John.
a great movie.
Thanks for having
That was a
us.
good chat.